All set, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get started, before you call the roll, I would like to offer our expression. On the behalf of your city family, Councilman Espinal, we want to extend our condolence to you. We know what it feels like to have a broken heart from death. So we all have experienced that. So we want to share that. And thank you for being with us tonight, in spite of your issues. So
thank you so much. Glad to be able to be here as I recognize the importance of this meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I would just like to echo that statement, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Narducci.
With that being said, good afternoon, everyone else that have joined us tonight in this call. Tonight is April the 7th. This is Wednesday, 2021. You have joined the Urban Redevelopment Renewal Planning Committee. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Harris.
Present.
Vice Chairman Narducci.
Yeah.
Councilman Correa. Absent. Councilwoman Castillo. Absent. Councilman Espinal.
Present.
We have 3 present and 2 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Besides our clerks tonight that we would like to welcome, we also would like to welcome our guest speaker, Emily Freeman. We would like to welcome Gina Costa, that I see, Carol Delgado, who's going to be working alongside of us, Doris Del Santos, who's been working alongside of us. Our solicitors, as usual, we welcome. So with that being said, is there anybody else that I have skipped as far as council people, Madam Clerk?
Not that I can, Madam Chair.
If not, at this time, we would like to call on our solicitor. She can introduce herself and, for the record, tell us why we still meet in this way. Just wait, before that, at stand, let's welcome, for the record, Councilwoman Costello.
So noted.
And now, Councilwoman, are you out of the country? We can't hear you.
You're on mute.
You're on mute.
Yes, I be out for a couple of days, but I'm be available to do my job anyways.
That's why I love this ERP committee. And with that being said, again, I want to go back to our city solicitor.
Hello. So this meeting is in compliance with the governor's executive order 2046 and 2130, extending public meetings remotely up until April 29th, 2021.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor.
No problem.
I need to call on the Madam Clerk to please read the first item into the record.
An ordinance amending chapter 2020-19, number 164, the CARES Act grant budget ordinance, and authorizing the Department of Planning and Development
Excuse me 1 second. There's a lot of background noise from somebody.
Yes, Councilman Narducci, I did notice that and I muted them for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Narducci.
Okay.
Thank you.
Department of Planning and Development to submit the CDBG-CV, ESG-CV, and HOPWA-CV budget and applications to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So as you all know, this is a CARES Act number 2. So with this being said, well, we call it CARES Act 3, Emily. And with this being said, I would like to turn it over to Emily, who has worked diligently on this proposal along with the mayor's office. So before that, I would like to ask all the council people, do you have your documents? I don't expect Councilwoman Costello to have hers, but do you have yours? Councilman,
I have mine, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Emily.
Madam Chair, and the exhibit into the record as Exhibit 1, please?
Oh, yes, I could do that, Madam Clerk, and thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, we would like to enter into the record the CARES Act packet as item 1, right?
Motion made.
Motion been made by Councilman Narducci,
Second?
second by Councilman Espinal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? The ayes have it. We have entered it into the record. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Well, at this point, we'll hear from Emily. And Emily, could you just walk us through the decisions that were made to, you had many, many applicants, talk us through that and how we came to this decision tonight that we're.
My pleasure. Good evening. Emily Friedman, Director of Community Development within the Department of Planning and Development. I'm pleased to join you all this evening to discuss the proposed amendment to the city's CARES Act ordinance and the proposed program year 2021, fiscal year 22 entitlement funding ordinance. So in front of you as the first agenda item is the proposed amendment to the CARES Act ordinance that we passed this prior spring. The city has received and will be receiving a final tranche of disaster relief funds through the passage of the CARES Act. As many of you may recall, we've already allocated earlier tranches of this funds through this pre-existing ordinance to many organizations and projects. Given that this is the final amount of relief available through this CARES Act, the first federal relief bill, we, the administration as well as the council, met to discuss the fact that we would need to be both strategic and targeted with these remaining dollars to ensure that we are addressing any gaps in services and ensuring that critical services that we've been offering throughout this pandemic to our constituents remain robustly funded so that we are not having to scale back necessary services. So we issued a targeted RFP, which closed March 5th. Proposals submitted needed to identify and address specific targeted needs, which were COVID testing and vaccination, food insecurity for households impacted by the pandemic, emergency housing supports for vulnerable populations, and small business supports for small businesses impacted by the and suffering due to the pandemic and related closures. We received a substantial amount of requests. As you'll see in Exhibit 1, we received many applications totaling 4.7 million in requests. Through this final tranche, we had 1.4 million to distribute for new projects or to supplement existing projects. As a reminder, the CARES Act provided specific one-time regulatory waivers that apply solely to these funds that don't apply to regular CDBG or other HUD funds. Most notably, the CARES Act waived the public service cap, the amount we could spend on social services, and shortened the public comment period in order to enable us to provide these funds on an expedited timeline. Proposals that we received needed to respond directly to the pandemic. So needed to document that they would directly and quantifiably prevent, prepare for, or respond to the coronavirus. Eligible proposals were evaluated on the number of clients served, whether they were targeting high-risk frontline populations, and the performance and capacity of the organizations. So some considerations that we bore in mind while developing this proposed amendment. As we discussed, the city had already received and allocated funds to 28 organizations. At present, many of these organizations have exhausted those funds or are limiting their services currently to ration their resources. Many of these high capacity partners submitted responsive proposals to the RFP to ramp up their operations or to continue their operations beyond the end of the fiscal year, so extend them for an additional year. What's important to note is that awards to existing partners can be addressed via a contract amendment as opposed to a new contract, new environmental review, all of that. So those can be further expedited in terms of deployment into the community. Some additional considerations as we crafted this budget are the fact that in its subsequent relief bills, $200 million in federal rental assistance money was set aside through the Treasury. This is the Rent Relief RI program, which actually just opened for applications this week. So again, there's a large-scale rent relief program that is also operating at this time. And then additionally, through further relief bills, the American Rescue Plan, there is sizable direct allocations going to state and local governments for pandemic response as well. For everyone's benefit and for the public to understand the exhibit, because these are supplemental funds through an existing appropriation, we are handling this as an ordinance amendment as opposed to crafting a new ordinance. So line items that you see on the budget in black are unchanged. If an item is identified in red, it is a new or amended line item. Where you see an item in black, typically an agency, that particular agency did not apply for additional funds under this RFP that went out. If there's crossouts, that indicates funds were added or subtracted from an existing line item. And I certainly can share my screen, or the clerk can share screen if folks would like to, if the committee would like to go through that budget. I'm available for questions. I defer to you all on how you'd prefer to proceed.
Thank you, Emily. At this time, I would like for the council members, Councilman Espinal, Councilman Costello, to share any thoughts they may have. If they have no thoughts, I think at one point we're going to be asking for a vote on this ordinance tonight before we close this item out. So I would like to hear from you, the committee members.
If I may, Madam Chair, I'd just like to add that it's pretty clear. I think Emily has done a great job. It's pretty self-explanatory. All the numbers are detailed, as she just explained. So I have no further questions on it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, I'm going to give you a minute, Councilman Nantucci. I just wanted to hear from Councilwoman Costello in case she had any
Thank you. I believe, they do the really good job, so I don't have anything to say right now.
Thank you so much. Let the record show that Councilwoman LaFortune have joined us in the meeting as well. I know Councilman Nantucci, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair, just as we're all very aware of, and I want to thank Emily also, but I want to thank everybody involved in this particular part of the CDBG funding for the COVID situation. And as we're all aware, this is very, very important to get out to the applicants because a lot of them are running on, how can you say, low fuel right now. We need to fuel them up. These organizations have all done a great job through this COVID crisis, and I'm proud to be a part of passing this budget out and to continue supporting the organizations that are supporting our people during this COVID situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Narducci. With that being said, I would like for you to entertain, I would like to take a motion from you.
Motion made to pass this budget out of committee.
Motion have been made to pass this budget out of committee before the full council. Is there a second? I see your lips move.
Second.
Councilman Espinal, Councilwoman.
I'm sorry.
No, you was on mute. That's all right. Councilman Espinal, Councilwoman Costello, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? With that being said, this have passed out of committee. Thank you all. You all realize how very, very important this is to get out. So thank you so much. But the work is just begun. I hate to soften it up, but the work just begun. There is more to the budget. And the second part of the budget, which is our regular CBD block grant budget, Emily will walk us through that timeline and process, because we're going to take a little bit more time to make sure that we are hearing from not only the committee, but many of our council members as well. So with that being said, Madam Clerk, could you please read the second item into the minutes?
Communication from His Honor, the Mayor, March 26, 2021, submitting the Community Development Block Grant Budget for Program Year 2021-2022.
So as I understand, Madam Clerk, this is coming off the docket.
That is, Madam Chair, and I've also distributed all the members the second exhibit. And if we could enter that into the record.
With that being said, I would like to entertain a motion to enter the second exhibit into the records.
I make a motion.
Motion made.
The motion.
Second motion.
Motion been made by Councilman Espinal, Councilman Casilla, and Councilman Narducci to enter into the record exhibit second.
Exhibit 2.
Okay.
Exhibit
2. So did I get a second?
Yep, second was made, yes.
Okay, very good. All right, with that being said, let's hear from our Emily Freeman.
Madam,
yes.
please call all in favor.
Oh yeah, say that again.
All in favor?
Oh, that's right. I'm so ready to get this done. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All in favor, all ayes have had. Any opposition? None, ayes have had it. Ayes is passed. Thank you for having clerks. And I want to say just for a second, just before we go into, they have been our essential workers. Inside that clerk's office have been amazing work. Councilman Narducci, thank you for giving not only the committee and ourselves credit, but all the hands on this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
We've heard, we've read the items, so we are here from Emily again.
Thank you. So I'm pleased to also be here with you this evening to present on behalf of the mayor's, present to you the mayor's proposed annual entitlement funding ordinance. So this is our ordinance that we develop annually to appropriate CDBG and other HUD funds that we receive as an entitlement to then pass through the budget ordinance and submit to HUD as part of an annual action plan submission. The program year annually runs from July 1st to June 30th. And we are required to then report to HUD on all spending accomplishments. So with this particular budget, I'm pleased to let you know that formula allocations were announced. And so the budget in front of you, as opposed to prior years, is the actual level of allocation. So those funding levels are accurate and set, not estimates. We experienced as a city a 10% increase in CDBG over the prior year, which helped us to provide a little bit more robust funding, as we'll discuss, to a number of organizations that do very meaningful work in the community. So absent fixed expenses, the funds we had to allocate totaled $4.5 million. We received, as you've seen in Exhibit 2, the CDBG and other applications, over $8.4 million in CDBG requests. So it is a very difficult decision-making process, as it is has been in many prior years. With the regular CDBG entitlement program, there are 4 main categories of activities that can be funded. Public services, which is the direct provision of social services to income qualified households or participants. This is the most restrictive and competitive category because, as a reminder, we are capped by regulation on how much we can spend on public services. And this is typically where we receive the most applications and see the highest level of need. In terms of other categories, we can invest in public facilities and infrastructure. So these are improvements to streets and sidewalks, parks, rec centers, schools, and nonprofit facilities that serve in qualified clients. There's no cap on that allocation category. And then for city ward accounts, the majority of city ward projects would fit into that category. We can also invest CDBG funds in housing. So that's anything related to the rehab or construction of housing for low and moderate income residents. So funding through housing includes the continuation of the home repair program and Every Home program. We also have made allocations to Community Development Corporation, CDCs, and the Providence Housing Authority for rehab of affordable housing through this category. Finally, we are also able to invest in economic development. So that's direct assistance that supports the development and growth of small businesses. So these are our grant and loan programs and technical assistance programs for small businesses. We have a well-established web-based application process. And so any submitted applications are evaluated again on the number of clients served, the capacity and performance of the organization. As we know, federal funds are not the easiest lift in terms of administration. So we do need to ensure that we are able to comply with the federal requirements that govern these funds in terms of reporting and eligibility. We also look to prioritize programs and services that ensure equity and access and are targeting our most vulnerable residents and areas of concentrated poverty. We also look to ensure that we are complying with the city's 5-year consolidated plan and that we are obtaining the best service for the best price. So is the service cost reasonable? So in terms of next steps, there is a proposed budget before you for your consideration. You will see within that budget that ward projects are not yet identified. We are in the process, thank you, Kyle Delgado, of finalizing the list of ward projects, and prior to approval by this committee, we will need to do a substitution to add those projects into the CDBG ordinance before passage. Once the ordinance is finalized and passed out of committee and passed 2 times by the council, we then are able to complete the HUD process portion of the process, which is a 30-day public comment period and build out of what we call an action plan. We then must submit the action plan to HUD for their final review and approval. Absent no edits from HUD, we typically receive our allocation, our contracts 45 days after that submission. So I am certainly here to address any questions and look forward to working with you all on this process.
Again, we would like to thank Kyle Delgado for his portion in the block grant. And also Kyle have been very instrumental in making sure he's looking at a lot of our funding. So good job. We're proud to have you join us this year. And glad to see Gina on the phone. We're getting closer and closer to Gina. Who knows where you're going? But we are excited to have this. If any committee members, does any committee members have any questions or concerns or any expression for now? I know you're just getting the budget, just looking at it, and it's okay.
If I may.
I think right.
Go ahead, Councilman Alducci. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Chair, I think right now it's the matter of, having our colleagues, as you had said in the beginning of the meeting, and sitting down and getting any concerns or questions answered. And again, making the process as easy as possible and as quick as possible, because again, this year more so than any year in the past, a lot of our community organizations and citywide, not just in my community, but in every community, these dollars, whether they be 15,000 or 50,000, are very important and can be utilized as quick as we can get this process done.
I appreciate that, Councilman Narducci. I think what's really great about having a committee is the fact that the committee also adds to the vetting of this process. So I like the idea of what you're saying, take this process through by allowing the committee to have their input, and also our colleagues on the council as well. So that's why we are so fortunate to have Doris Del Santos Cal, and also Gina is joining because we have an acting chief of staff now who is trying to make sure he wraps his head around a lot of stuff. So we got a good team, and Emily is a workaholic. We already know that, so we're workaholics with her. So good clerk office. I think we are in a process of getting it done, Councilman Narducci, according to what you're saying, in a feasible time, and get it done where we can vet it in a healthy way that all council members will be able to have their concerns. That's why we have this team pull the board. We have Doris, Cal, and Gina, I guess, stepping in for Jim to also talk among the council people. We don't want to have a rolling quorum. We realize that. And so we want to do this, like you said, in a process. So thank you. Right now, I just want to hear what Emily have delivered a message to us tonight about what the grant is and what some of our responsibility. I just want to hear from the members of the committee. And then, of course, we're going to continue this matter. And the clerks will keep us moving along according to Councilman Narducci's request about making sure that we do it in a speedy.
Well, Madam Chair, if I may, Councilman.
Yes, sir.
Well, my comments are in line with those of Vice Chair Narducci. I think, yes, we do need to get this money out there as soon as possible. Kudos to Emily and all those that took part in allocating this funding. It's not an easy thing to do when you get about $8 million worth of ask and you only get about half to deal with. But looking at some of the organizations here, I'm familiar with a lot of them, and just judging from the great work that they do in our community, that makes it a lot easier because this organization do great, excellent work in our city. So again, as Councilman Narducci says, let's take the steps necessary to make sure that we can deliver this as soon as possible. So with that, we can look to see when, perhaps we can meet as soon as possible and begin the process. Thank you.
Now, Emily, do you have anything else to add to the conversation?
I would echo those sentiments again. I think we know for a lot of these partners, getting dollars queued up for the next fiscal year as quickly as possible and being able to notify folks of award is very important. So we do want to ensure that we're ready to have funds available as early as possible. I would just reiterate to the committee as well that the earlier that we can get our submission into HUD means the earlier that we will physically receive funds. And so it's always incumbent on us to try to do the most transparent and thoughtful process as quickly as possible. So I appreciate working with all of you, and I look forward to, my understanding is at the discretion of the chair, you will be inviting organizations to make presentations on behalf of their proposals. And I look forward to hearing from organizations, and I look forward to being available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Emily.
Madam Chair.
With that,
Madam Chair, through you to Emily, if I may. Emily, would you just be kind enough to give the timeline that you have discussed with me and Madam Chair to the committee?
Absolutely. Ideally, we would schedule and conduct these IRP hearings throughout the month of April. Aim for 2 council passages in the month of May, potentially early June. And by doing so, that enables us to have the 30-day public comment period and get our submission into HUD. The recommended date for submission is May 15th. So we want to try to be as close to that date as possible. Typically, in the last few years, when we've had successful budget processes, we've been able to get our submission into HUD, only a few weeks after that. And so because of that, we've historically, we've received funds earlier than we have in many years prior. As many remember, we used to receive our funds in the winter, so halfway through the program year. And we want to do everything we can on our end to try to ensure that we are setting ourselves up to get money as quickly as possible, as close to July 1st as possible, because that enables us to potentially queue up projects for fall construction and make sure we don't have gaps between organizations' budgets if they're funded year over year.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Thank you, Emily. With that being said, what we will do is leave it up to council people who want to hear from organizations to contact the clerk's office and put those organizations through. We will hear from these organizations, and along with doing some work simultaneously with our council members to make sure that we are passing this budget accordingly. Okay, so, and for all those that need to work with Cal, please do get your projects in. And I think we'll be able to get this done. I really do. So with that being said, I would entertain a motion to continue.
Madam Chair, motion to adjourn.
No,
I would
continue.
entertain a motion to continue this item.
I'm sorry. Motion to continue. item number 2.
Second.
Motion have been made to
Lot of-
item, second by Councilwoman Costello. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We will continue this matter, and we will get our next date from the clerk's office for our next meeting. I will call on Councilman Narducci to make the next motion.
Motion to adjourn, Madam Chair, if there's no further business.
Second.
With no further business before this body, we will adjourn. Councilman Narducci, second by Councilwoman Costello. Be safe and let's get busy. Thank you. Thank you all. for
Thank you. Happy good night.
Good night. Thank you, Councilwoman Costello.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.